Curly was informed by Che that the demon children are currently sleeping in his realm, and Che was confident that if Curly were to perform the same actions that he had performed on him, he would be able to wake up the demon children as well. To be more specific, if the children of the demons were to awaken, they would not be able to enjoy his protection because he is unable to manage such a large number of individual locations. As a result, he told Curly to exercise caution in order to prevent the demon children from being exposed to sunlight and therefore preventing them from becoming burned. Curly did not have faith in himself, so he inquired of Che whether or not he was capable of actually accomplishing the task. Curly was informed by Che that he had faith in him since he shared with him the information that he had learnt from Lexter regarding the things that humans are capable of doing that even the gods are unable to perform. The nurse and Curly were observed in the laboratory, where Curly was in the process of combining a number of different substances. In the meantime, the nurse had already given up, believing that it was impossible to achieve the goal because they were not gods, and it had been a considerable amount of time, approximately 2 years, since they had begun their antics. Curly, on the other hand, stated that it had been 5 years since they had become aware of such a thing. Yet, he had attempted to do so because he did not want to admit with his own voice that it is impossible. In addition, the nurse was a demon, and Curly was aware that if they were successful in finding a solution, then she would also be able to transform into a human. This is because she cannot continue to live as a demon for the rest of her life. On the other hand, Curly was perplexed as to how she was able to open his eyes while taking a common anti-sedative medication such as flumazenol. The nurse, whose name was Miena, was not startled by this, as she had already placed her trust in Che. The only thing that surprised her was the fact that he was able to react to the drug, given that he was composed of red blood and his skin was soft. Due to the fact that she cannot stop thinking about how adorable Che is, Miena was actually having a crush on him. Taking into consideration what Miena had just spoken, Curly expressed his hope that the medications would be effective on the demon offspring. Miena further stated that if the drugs were successful, then the children would undoubtedly be more similar to humans than Che. Curly was perplexed because Che had stated that the youngsters were immobilized within his universe. He pondered whether or not Che had genuinely drugged himself. Then, all of a sudden, he had an epiphany and confirmed with Miena that the reason she prescribed flumazenol for Che's coma was because she determined that it was a problem with GABA, which is a neurotransmitter that is composed of amino acids. The response that Miena gave was that it is connected to it. She responded by saying that it was due to the fact that flumazenol was the neurotransmitter that was utilized the most in the central nervous systems of mammals. However, Curly questioned why she arrived at such a conclusion given that he is not even a human. Curly, however, was perplexed as to how Miena could be so naive as to believe that Che was not a mammal but rather a god, and not even a god but all life. He believed that Che was the source of all existence. This was something that Miena found to be interesting because she had not anticipated that he would speak about such a metaphysical topic, but she was aware of the fact that Curly has never been a fan of her approach, which gave the impression that he had undergone a significant transformation. Nevertheless, Curly stated that he did not commit the crime. Miena's intention was to reprimand him. In light of this, Miena inquired of him whether there was anything that they could accomplish using surgical techniques. In response, he stated that he had discovered the path and that it had already been stopped. However, they are currently searching for a method to restore the power. During the conversation, White and Che were spotted sitting down together in the corridor of the hospital. White initiated the conversation by inquiring about what would happen to Che, given that Che appeared to have achieved his objective. Che, on the other hand, stated that any time he sees White, he is continuously reminded of a particular someone, and that somebody is a young child who is pathetic. Che, on the other hand, was actually referring to White, and White was already aware of this fact. Yet White joked that he is much larger than Che himself due to the fact that he is older. In addition, Che did not reach the same conclusion, as he asserted that he was once quite large. White could no longer argue with him because he had come to terms with the fact that he was so small and wretched. However, he was anxious about whether or not Che would genuinely help him. Che responded in an honest manner that he did not have the right to condemn White in any way, but that he did have something to tell White about his parents. So he told him that his parents did not forsake him as he believed they did. Rather, it was the opposite, because before they left this world, they gave White a name, which Shay claimed was Charles Frederick Shaw. He stated that this demonstrated that his parents did not abandon him. White was taken aback because he was unaware that Shay had conducted a covert investigation into him. As a result, White asked Shay why he had done so, and Shay said that it was because he owed White money. White was surprised by this information. At that moment, White had the epiphany that Shay was doing all of the things that he was doing for him. Therefore, Shay cautioned him to remember his true name and his humanity. But White was already beginning to feel dissatisfied with the situation. Some individuals were lying down near the water, and a radio was playing in the vicinity of where they were, and a conversation was taking place on the radio, where a man named Mr. Thompson was being questioned by the radio host about whether or not he believed in the presence of God. He responded by saying that a lot of people in the United States do have religion, but he stated that he did not believe in such things. To put it simply, he was aware that if he were asked to explain the splendor of Florida without mentioning God, he would be at a loss for words indeed. He went on to explain that people sometimes attribute things that are beyond their control to a variety of factors, such as uncontrollable feelings of despair and rage, unexpected accidents, and insurmountable realities. These are the reasons that people believe that God exists. After that, he informed the presenter that, if they were interested in learning more about the matter, they should know that the Hexagon Island demon commotion was ultimately caused by humans. While this was going on, the radio host became more interested in the topic at hand and requested that Mr. Thompson provide them with additional information. Therefore, he went on to explain that if there were demons, rather than beings from hell, then he understood that they were demons of the heart, which means that they are unable to control immorality. That being the case, Mr. Thompson stated that if the government were to collapse, it would indicate that the society was already in a vulnerable situation. After that, Mr. Thompson was questioned further about the current situation in the United States of America, since they are interested in determining whether or not an emergency situation of this nature should also occur in that country. As a result, he responded in accordance with his analysis that the physical isolation of Hexagon Island was the factor that made the problem worse. He pointed out that there were no such exceptional circumstances in the United States of America. Reynolds was later observed as he managed to raise his head up from where the fractured ground that it was trapped in. He did not even know that he would manage to extract his head alive. Reynolds was able to do this. Earlier, he was caught with his head grasped when he was refusing to wear some form of clothing that Uriel had given him. When he eventually freed himself, Uriel approached him and asked him why he had refused to wear the clothes as they were required for him to wear. In addition, Uriel informed him that his name is now Rael, and that it was previously Reynolds. He insisted that Rael wear the clothing, but Rael did not agree with him. As a result, he was compelled to wear them. He mandated that he wear anything white, such as white robes or a white crown. But Rael objected, stating that he would rather choose to die than wear them. And just as Uriel was about to tell him to die, if that was what he desired, they suddenly became aware of a foul odor. This caused Uriel to pause, stating that the origin of the odor is on the opposite side of the globe. He then proceeded to say that he would go and look for Luciel and the others, while also requesting that Rael hurry up as well, because they need to stop Luciel. When Reynolds, also known as Rael, went to change his shirt, he noticed some red scars on his two shoulders. He wondered when all of that had happened to him, but he could not recall anything. Uriel left while Reynolds, also known as Rael, went to change his shirt. Suddenly, he became aware of some words that were echoing, and he attempted to remove the cloth that was tied around his eye. Instantaneously, the fabric began to cause him pain. After that, he begins to consider the possibility that the marks he had on his body were the result of Ra's memories and afterimages, given that he did not have any more memories after the point of Aries. Since he was unable to open his left eye, he stepped outside and pondered about everything. He believed that flour was the culprit behind the marks that were drawn on him, and that it was also responsible for rendering one eye unusable. At that very time, he was aware that something was going to happen to his head because, for a little period, he had the sensation that he was able to look inside Ra's skull. He prayed that he would be able to see the person who had done all of that to him as soon as possible. While this was going on, Lucio was observed sitting by himself on the edge of a building and listening to solo music. Suddenly, Reinald had the sensation that something had struck him in the head, which caused him to believe that his brain was going to burst. Then, all of a sudden, a monster appeared in his imagination and asked him what he was seeking for. He responded that he was looking for memories pertaining to Lucio, but the monster told him to return at a later time. Upon regaining consciousness, he found himself perplexed at the events that were transpiring in his body, which led him to speculate that it might have been Ra's memories once more. After that, he moved a chair closer to him and sat down next to him, as he made the decision to return to the location as the voice had instructed him to do. In this way, he returned to his imagination, and he recalled seeing a young kid who he had known in a previous life to be the youngest of Diane's siblings. He was referred to as Barry, because he recalled that Diane was going mad after losing Barry on that particular day. He pondered the possibility of what had occurred to Barry at that time. Despite the fact that he is unable to see, he was aware of the fact that they are unable to bulk up Lessa at this time. This is the reason why he thought Diane to be so ignorant. He knew that Lessa had not done anything to him that was harmful. Despite the fact that Reinald intended to apologize since he was aware that Diane's sister had a misunderstanding of the situation, he has come to the realization that Lessa was not the one who had done something like that. Rather, what had occurred in the past was in Lessa's control. As was to be expected, Lucio was the one who abducted the young kid. He had made a promise to Barry that he would remove him from the darkness so that he would no longer be unable to see with his eyes. On the other hand, the young man inquired about Lucio's identity despite the fact that he had previously gone to meet him. In addition, Lucio revealed to him that he is an angel who is eager to assist him. He also stated that he would present Barry with a gift in recognition of the fact that he had survived a life filled with misery. As a result, the presents consist of 2 eyes that are like gems and will make Barry no longer be in the dark. Additionally, the hair is as red as the raspberries that Barry adores, and the voice is as sweet as the singing of a bird. He made all of these statements in an attempt to seduce the little boy, and Reinald became enraged as a result. Nevertheless, in exchange for everything that he had given the boy, he warned the youngster that in the far future, the boy would be required to return his body to him. He also told the boy that if the boy guaranteed him that, he would be willing to give the boy a new life. On the other hand, the young man shared with Lucio that he wouldn't mind being reborn as a blind person again, if it meant that he could be resurrected as Diane's younger sibling. This was the condition under which he would be content with being reborn. As soon as Reinald learned about all of this, he was filled with rage. Exactly at that moment, Lucio caught sight of him and promptly halted him in his tracks. Due to the fact that Lucio was unable to see very well, he asked Reinald who he was looking for. Lucio offered to assist him because he could see that Reinald was struggling without any assistance. Lucio had already recognized him, as he greeted him by his name Reinald. He was able to observe that Reinald appeared to be the youngest of the apostles, so he allowed him to understand that he is not very cute. Due to the fact that they were outside, the rain started dropping all of a sudden, and it rained on them. When Reinald realized that Lucio was the one who was speaking to him, he started calling him a variety of names. Lucio asked him in jest why he was calling him those names despite the fact that he was trying to make Reinald understand that even the sky is a blessing to their meeting. The wrath that Reinald felt against Lucio was so obvious that he could not conceal it, and he did not even bother to respond to him. He only wanted to get ahead of him and began kicking him, and Lucio returned the beatings as well. However, to everyone's surprise, Reinald was able to give Lucio a kick that caused him to fall to the ground. Raymond was able to give Lucio the beating of his life by opening his mouth wide, grabbing his teeth with the jaw, and dragging him. This was the manner in which Lucio fell down, to the extent that Raymond was able to do so. After that, he smashed him on the shattered floor, which caused Lucio to fall into it and land on a different floor. However, he was still able to communicate with Reinald, and he informed him that when he had made his fist earlier, he had brought to his mind his older brother, of whom he was aware that Reinald was not even close to being on the same level as him. Lucio begged Reinald to stop asking about Lucy everywhere he went because he stated that Reinald's world would still be destroyed regardless of what he did. Reinald was not even interested in what he was asking, but rather he asked him what he had done to Lucy, his younger sister. As a result, he informed Reynold that the topic of his younger sister was not a significant one, stating that he had something more essential to share with him. However, Reynold did not even allow him to finish his sentence before he matched his face with his feet. Reynold made it clear to Luciel that his younger sister is so significant to him that he is willing to sacrifice his life for her. This is because Lucy was so essential to Reynold, and Luciel was aware that Reynold was capable of doing that because that is something that families do, but he found it to be the most revolting thing that could possibly happen. Because Luciel is able to attest to the fact that Reynold has trained so effectively while being a human, he was unable to conceal the fact that Reynold was extremely powerful. Because there is no difference between what he did to Lucy and what Lord Ra did to him, he informed Reynold that Lord Ra is a pervert. This is because there is no difference between the two. However, as he learned that Reynold is a dull individual, he realized that Reynold was unable to make effective use of the power that he had bestowed upon him. He even went so far as to tell him that his younger sister was not like him since he had been seeking someone with a soul that is like to Lessa's, who possesses a high capacity. In all honesty, Luciel anticipated that Reynold would have picked up some knowledge from Ra, as he explained to him that the reason he had a chance encounter with Lessa in his previous life was not because Reynold was exceptional, but rather because he had chosen Barry. Since Raybald had stated that he would give his life for the child, he now requested that Reynold pass away so that he might comprehend how insignificant he is in that universe. The only thing that Reynold was able to glean from what Luciel had to say was that Luciel had been playing with Shear's life at the beginning of things. This caused Reynold to hit Luciel once again, as he had even wanted to murder Luciel. Reynold then used some lightning magic, such as fire, on Luciel, which caused him to draw away from him. And that was how they began to engage in a fierce battle, to the point that Luciel called his purple abilities. Luciel was unable to comprehend that Lord Ra was not very skilled in the creation of monsters, so he also asserted that he is accustomed to dealing with animals. Because of this, he made the decision to punish Reynold. After that, Luciel gave the instruction to the red sword that was with him to plant roots, which is a metaphor for the seed of the emptiness. And all of a sudden, the blade began to transform into a spirit with a great deal of force, breaking into small red signals. As Reynold went backward, he discovered that he was becoming increasingly terrified. Yet, before he knew it, he was already coated in the crimson spirit. Luciel was content with the situation because he was aware that the flowers that flourished in the emptiness were not of this world. He then inquired about Reynold's reaction to it, given that it was the first time he had ever seen it. Despite this, he informed Reynold that he was going to teach him a great deal of information that he was not familiar with. However, Reynold responded by stating that he did not require his instruction because he was not prepared to listen to someone like Luciel. In addition, Luciel stated that he will not take Reynold's viewpoint into consideration because he has realized that personal opinions are not required on the path to discovering the truth. In spite of this, he was able to successfully convince Reynold of one thing: he will neither force him to make a sacrifice or rule him in the same way that Ra had done. While Reynold was being tormented by the spirits, Luciel realized that he required freedom, and he was prepared to provide it to him in the same way that he would grant salvation. After an incident that had recently occurred, a few individuals were seen, and one of them was questioned about the number of people who were able to be saved. This was due to the fact that the individual could recognize approximately 20 to 30 individuals, but he was unable to take any action because the communication with the strategy team had been severed. The remaining survivors were seen to be accompanied by a monster once more, and one of the survivors mustered up the strength to warn the others not to move because they would also become infected in the same way as the monster. In spite of this, if they did not move, they would be forced to give up their valuable lives one after the other. Just then, an elderly woman stood up and confronted the monster with the intention of requesting that the creature take her life rather than bringing shame upon them. Despite the fact that others cried and warned the woman not to go out, she went out anyway, and the monster grabbed her right away. She then slaughtered her and twisted her neck. Then go ahead towards the man that talked earlier, and the man also summoned a little bit of bravery to talk at the monster, that he would not be scared of him, because he was fairly convinced that the monster was going to end up being burnt in the fires of hell for eternity. The monster appeared out of nowhere and proceeded to remove the man's eyes and tongue before bringing his hand to his head and causing him to suffer a horrific death. Because of the manner in which the creature was killing everyone became even more terrified. After some time had passed, another guy went forward to confront the monster. But his wife prevented him from doing so. When the man reached that spot, he suddenly became aware of the fact that they were not the individuals that the monster desired. Instead, he pointed upwards, and they saw a helicopter. That is, the people urged someone to get in touch with the individuals who were in the helicopter and to land it as soon as possible. They did not care if the people who landed the chopper were from the police or the FBI. They wanted anything that would save them. It came as a surprise when the helicopter went down, which also had an effect on the creature. At that moment, two young guys unexpectedly emerged fully armed, giving the impression that they wanted to come and defend those people from the monster. Everyone was still eager to find out what would happen next. And it just so happened that the young men were angels, with Sandalphon and Remiel being the names of two of them. The people were overjoyed, and even the children were able to identify them as angels. As a result, Sandalphon and Remiel were able to make the people forget what had occurred on that particular day. Remiel then requested that Sandalphon evacuate those individuals and also guide the souls of those who had passed away. While Remiel made the decision to confront the monster, he was aware that the monster had been responsible for the deaths of a great number of innocent people. As a result, he inquired about the nature of the monster. The monster made an attempt to show him certain things, but the angel was unable to comprehend what he was saying. All he could do was state that he was getting a negative vibe from the monster, as he could sense that the monster's energy was squeezing the air around him. Uriel was using the angel's eyes to see, so he is also in order to discover the nature of the monster. Therefore, he asked Uriel to determine what kind of creature the monster is, and Uriel asked to assist him with knowing what kind of creature it is. After spending some time analyzing the creature, Uriel discovered that there are no records of a life similar to that of the monster since Lord Ray created the planet. This is the case regardless of the methods that he used to hunt for the monster's identity. Despite the fact that Remiel believed that Uriel's spear would preserve every memory of the cosmos, he continued to wonder what the monster could possibly be. He was under the impression that he would be able to determine what the creature appeared to be. However, what was important to Remiel was the fact that the monster was a malevolent creature that needed to be eradicated. Hence, he would ensure that the monster paid the price for its actions. After that, Remiel gave the order for the Spear of Revelation to pierce the monster. Therefore, Remiel attempted to attack the monster with the spear. However, the spear unexpectedly broke in two due to the fact that the aura emanating from the creature was too strong. After then, Remiel made a request to the Spear of Revelation, which is the holy will of the gods, to remove the mask that the monster was wearing and to assist him in distinguishing the monster from the good. In point of fact, he desired the spear so that it could kill the monster. On the other hand, as soon as the spear began to serve its purpose, it became incompatible with the aura of the monster, and it vanished entirely. Despite the fact that Remiel was unable to withstand the aura, he fell to the ground, and Sandalphon ran to him in order to assist him. In an effort to calm Remiel down, he requested that he call forth the spear once more. However, Remiel was hesitant to do so because it was well known that the spear had been responsible for the destruction of worlds, which was something that had never occurred before. After then, Sandalphon divulged to Remiel the information that they are required to destroy their very own white crowns in accordance with the will of Lord Ra. By the way, it is time for them to pay for the mental freedom that they have already acquired. Upon more consideration, Remiel came to the realization that if they were to act in such a manner, they would be unable to engage in genuine communication with the apostles from that point forward. The white crown was the only thing that could bring their minds together, as Remiel was unable to put his faith in those brothers. This was due to the fact that Lord Ra was absent. Sandalphon, on the other hand, made an effort to present Remiel with an explanation about the entire precarious position, because the creature was more powerful than they had anticipated. And even though a great number of humans had also perished, there was no sign of any souls being seen. When Sandalphon finished his sentence, Remiel was curious about what he meant by it. During the time that White Sandalphon was attempting to respond, the monster was getting closer to them. They were pretty surprised because they had no idea when he was getting closer to them.